once again, let us start. Okay, so last week we had aliens. The week before last we had a work called Nor. And this week I am beginning with this image. Turn comments off. Yeah. Now, if you're thinking what I'm thinking when you look at this image, you're thinking that some men are absolutely, completely shameless. That's what I'm thinking. Look at the guy who's essentially in the middle, so he's on the right-hand side of this group of men. What's he doing? He's just eyeing up these poor women who are all trying to cover their modesty, and two of whom are actually at that moment being ravaged by maggots. I mean, has he no shame? I think he really needs to give himself a little bit of a talking to. He's also a king, so he really ought to have been brought up with better manners, if I'm completely honest. So he's a king on the right-hand side. The guy on the left-hand side is a pope. And I was thinking that he was actually averting his eyes, but I think the Pope and the young lady sort of nearest to us, the one who's less ravaged by maggots than the other two, I think actually they're kind of giving each other the eye. I was thinking that he was averting his eyes, but I don't think he actually is he? In the centre of the gentleman, you have an emperor who seems to be more interested in the Pope than the ladies. I'm saying ladies. I think they are supposed to be women, but obviously they are in, unfortunately for them, various states of decomposition. So you can see kind of the I don't know, maybe I shouldn't be laughing perhaps. I mean, I don't think they're laughing. But you know, so you've got the one on the right as we're looking at the image who, you know, she's fairly fresh out of the grave. Then the one in the centre who's you know, a little bit worse for wear, and then the one over to the left, she's really gone, hasn't she? She's really gone. So that's one example. Then we've got these rather effete fellows. So this example is from about 100 years prior, I think, to the last one. They're like, oh, hello, because they are looking at a very, very similar scene, which is this scene here. So it's exactly the same sort of trope. So you have three noblemen, this time, three effete noblemen, who are engaging with, in some way, three... Are these women? I don't know, maybe we could say they're women. They were definitely women in the other one. Not, you know, the sex of the corpses doesn't particularly make much difference, unless they're being eyed up. But they're being, yeah, waved at, rather jolly. I mean, aren't they? by three corpses in various states of decomposition. And I do love these sort of vigorous waves. Like, hello, they must be slightly worried that body parts might start flying off all over the place, I think. And then the one on the right-hand side, rather charming. Is she? I'm gonna say she. Is she doing a little Charleston? I wonder. You know, the sort of hands. You can't see my hands. The sort of Charleston hands. I don't know. I'm feeling like a little bit of a dance has come upon her. So, yeah, what's this all about? Well, I think in this instance, it's very much more clear. I'm going to just return to the gentleman here. It's very much more clear that, not from the images, I have to say, but from the writing, that they are slightly freaked out. about this whole scenario being waved at by jolly corpses, because there's some writing underneath. It's in Old English, and you can actually make out 3 words, which I'm going to bring up for you. There's 3 words which are over on the right hand side, and they read "Ich am aghast," which is Old English for, here we go, I am aghast. I'm a linguist. And yeah, well, they might be aghast. And basically, the writing on the sort of the corresponding image is all about yes, you should be aghast because we were once like you are. Still jolly, and you are one day going to be the same way that we are. It's coming for you, and before death comes for you, you better buck your ideas up before redemption is too late. So the whole trope is called, unsurprisingly, 3 living and 3 dead. Very popular throughout, sort of started in the 13th century. No one quite knows how it started, but I mean, you know, it is a sort of a morality tale, I guess, of sorts, and sort of carried on through the 14th century into the 15th century, mostly in France and England. So the first manuscript, or the first image, this is a French image from the late 15th century, and then this is from England, and it is 14th century. So that was a thing. You know, you might meet. If you don't go out with 2 mates, because it always happened in 3s. So, you know, if you go out with 1 mate or with 3 mates, then you're fine. But go out with 2 mates, and you might well meet corresponding corpses, or just telling you to be good people before you die. Scary, but not quite as bad as this. Look at this scenario here. I mean, this is very much less than ideal. And where is it? Oh my goodness, it hasn't come through. Okay. Ooh, what am I going to do? Okay, I'm just going to have to come back to it. You see, it's all going on Instagram at the moment. Give me 1 second, and I'm just going to save this image. It's going to pause, let people know. Are you still there? Are you still there? I hope you're still there. Sorry about that. So let's just see whether I've got it now. Yes, I have. Here we go. So that scenario is less than ideal. This scenario is even more less than ideal, because this guy is just sleeping in his bed. Little afternoon nap, perhaps, and a corpse comes up and strangles him. Rude. It's a little bit more than this than meets the eye. Of course there is. So this was created the latter part of the 14th century, and we all know by now what happened in the middle of the 14th century, which was that a great plague essentially wiped out about a third of the population of Europe. And so this is an image that it's in Prague now, actually, is responding to that. And this isn't just a murderous corpse strangling people in their bed at night. This is death. This is a sort of personification of death coming for a plague victim. So this guy, like a third of the population, probably more, has caught the plague, and he is about to go and meet his maker, hopefully rather more peaceful than his death is looking at this moment in time. But death can come for you not necessarily as a terribly frightening face. Death can come to you as a beautiful woman, perhaps. So now we are getting to the crux, in many respects, of this week's Elevenses in terms of how it fits into the theme for the month. This is a 19th century image that was created for an epic poem that was written in the 15th century by a man called Frascatoro. I wanted to call him Frascati. You know how when you do that thing and you're reading something and you don't say it out loud, and your brain just kind of gets to the nearest word. Anyway, Frascati. What does that say about me? Quite a lot, maybe. Anyway, Frascatoro, who was an Italian 15th century poet, obviously, because he wrote this poem, but also a physician. And this epic poem was called, can you guess, Syphilis. So if you have a look at this woman, I said this is from actually the 19th century, an illustration for the poem so much later on. So there you go, look. So here she is hiding her ravaged, skeletal face behind this very beautiful mask, which is what people had to do when they had syphilis, because it was not a pretty disease at all. So I'm stopping sharing for a moment because syphilis. Let's talk about syphilis. You came to talk about art, but we're going to talk about syphilis. We're coming back to art. So what happened when you had syphilis was that, first of all, you would maybe find some ulcers down below, and you would think, oh, that's not very nice. And maybe you'd get headaches, maybe you'd have fevers, but they might not necessarily stop you from going out and having a good time, and therefore, of course, spreading it. You probably think, oh God, I'm going to have a few drinks. I'm not feeling great. Drink my sorrows away. Until then, things got a whole lot worse, and you then started to, or your ulcers started to get worse and worse, and they would start eating into your flesh and into your bone, particularly nasty on your face when they would eat away your nose and your mouth and your eyes, sometimes absolutely horrific, until maybe you would end up looking like this. Horrific. Absolutely horrific. This is the title of this is just 18th century syphilitic prostitute. Lovely. She's in the Welcome collection. Just as an aside, I particularly am taken with the fact that they've put her head on this plate. It's like, what was it? Some kind of weird macabre reference to John the Baptist, I was going to say or Judith and Holofernes, but really it would be John the Baptist, wouldn't it? Which reminds me that actually victims of syphilis did have their own patron saint as well. Guess who that patron saint was? Saint Denis, old Saint Denis. And do you remember what he was? He was a cephalophore. Head came off, carried on, walking up to north of Paris, to Saint Denis. Anyway, cephalophore, remember that? Cephalophore. If you can't remember all about cephalophores, it's in the archives. So this is what you could end up looking like. And syphilis was rife. So it first kind of exploded in the 1480s. 1495 in Naples, there was a particularly horrific outbreak, and this strain was awful, and there were reports of people walking around the streets, because you didn't die straight away. That was the thing, you didn't die straight away. So you face was eaten away, bits of you were falling off, and so there, it was like the living dead walking or crawling through the streets of Naples in 1495, according to many reports. In 1484, there was also a pretty horrific outbreak of syphilis in Germany, in Nuremberg, and it was all new. So 1484, it was very much a new disease in that year. And so I want to finish with this woodcut by very famous artist, very famous German artist from Nuremberg, a gentleman called Albrecht Dürer, and the National Gallery have got an exhibition coming up of Dürer in the autumn, I think it is. Oh my God, I can't wait. That's going to be an exhibition to go and see for sure. But what have we got here? So we've got a guy who isn't quite the kind of walking corpse that we might be expecting in terms of somebody being ravaged by syphilis, but he has got all these sort of lesions, and he's not looking his best, shall we say. But then above his head is this weird sphere. So you can see there, you've sort of got astrological signs all around it, and the date in the centre, 1484. And this is all to do with the fact that in Nuremberg, at this moment in time, this horrific disease had suddenly become rife, and the people of Nuremberg thought that it was some kind of apocalyptic sign. So literally the people of Nuremberg thought it was a zombie apocalypse, because the way that people looked when they had syphilis, because of the number of them, because they could imagine that it could mean absolutely nothing else but the end of the world. So there we go. So we're ending up with Dürer's zombie apocalypse. You must by now, I'm sure, have got the connection for June. Remembering, by the way, that it was Nuremberg that, 80 years later, in 1561, also had what they thought was an alien invasion. So it was all kicking off in Nuremberg in the 15th and 16th centuries, wasn't it? So we've got Nor, which might not be maybe the best clue. I'm going to turn comments back on. And we've got yes, we had a guess that it was Romeo and Juliet that was the link. It's not Romeo and Juliet. So we had Nor, and then we had an alien invasion, and now we've got a zombie apocalypse. What possibly can we have coming up next week? Oh, Adrian, you think you might have the link? Well, really? So there we go. On that note, I'm off. Have a great day, everyone. Bye. Thanks for joining. Bye.